Welcome, chamber music fans. This is Michelle Schumann here, the Artistic Director of the Austin Chamber Music Center. I'm so happy to be here with Sara Sant'Ambrogio. She is a friend of the Austin Chamber Music Center. Sara was with us about maybe 3 years ago. We did a wonderful Chopin program, and then the Eroica Trio was here, I want to say 6 years ago for the Austin Chamber Music Festival. And so we're so happy to have you guys back, and now you're back with a different violinist. So I'm excited to talk to you, Sara, and I want you to tell us a little bit how that experience is going with the new violinist.
Well, our new violinist, Sara Parkins, actually, it is like kismet that we finally found back with each other, because we've been playing together since we were literally, I met Adela, our first original violinist of Eroica Trio, at the same exact moment that I met Sara Parkins.
Wow.
And it was only because, Eroica already knew Adela and was playing with her, but hadn't yet met Sara Parkins because she didn't meet her for another year, that we then played in the trio with Adela. Mm-hmm. Who we adored. I mean, we adored Adela. But then Sara Parkins and I and Eroica played together for the rest of our lives from the time, that moment. And Sara Parkins and I were actually roommates at Curtis. We were best friends. We were like, I mean, when I got married a year and a half ago, she was right there, like handing me to my son, who at 7 years old walked me down the aisle and then lost the rings. Yeah. but, you know, so we've been playing together ever since. And when Adela then injured herself, Sara was in a very fine string quartet, the Angeles String Quartet, which then was just about to win the Grammy for Best Chamber Music Performance for their recording of all the Haydn string quartets. Yeah. And so she wasn't available. Mm-hmm. And then we met Susie Park, who was wonderful, and so we played with her. Then Susie, who, when Susie then decided that she wanted to try some new things, we were like, Sara Parkins! And she was like, yay! And that was it. We were like, woo, fantastic. So we're like where we think we should have been, like from the get-go. And so we're just thrilled. I mean, she's, you know, we keep saying Eroica 3.0 is the best version so far. Because it's really, like, Eroica, Sara, and I have exactly the same sort of, like, giggly, like, incredibly joyous, passionate, romantic kind of energy on stage. We're all three just like, we love these big, meaty, romantic, lush, you know, sensual sort of playing. That's Sara's forte. She's got this really thick, dark, rich, juicy violin sound, and so it matches so wonderfully with my cello sound.
Right.
And she's got that whole sort of, you know, she just, we just have been doing the exact same things. And, you know, she studied with my family as well, you know, with my dad, and then was coaching chamber music. She was at my family's music camp as well as Eroica was at, you know, studying with my grandma. So it's really so intertwined.
So it's like it's family more than just,
it totally is.
What a great...
I mean, somebody sent me a picture from a recent concert we did in Southern California. And, like, the three of us are bowing, and we're all, like, in mid-giggle. Like, it's like, because it's just, like, it's so... We can't stop smiling on stage, because it's just, like, so happy, you know.
Well, how great to have that experience, because so often, I mean, it must be always a scary thing for an established group when one member wants to leave, because you have to find a new way and yet, have your same identity. So how great that you had kind of access to each other, that you guys have been playing forever, that you didn't have to have maybe the growing pains of figuring that out.
Exactly. I know. I mean, it really is amazing to me, because we formed the Eroica Trio with Adela, and I love Adela. I love her playing. I love her as a human being. I think she was such a poet, and there was something just so ethereally beautiful about the way she expressed herself. But she wasn't one of those like down and dirty, gutsy players like me and Eroica were. And Susie also was a wonderful violinist and had some beautiful, like sometimes when up in the upper register, it was just like almost like unbelievably beautiful and stuff. But again, it was like we just tried to get it just a little bit more juice, a little bit more like in there. Yeah. And then Sara came, we were like, thank the Lord. Finally, this is really now what we've always gone for, because there are 2/3 of us who are that way, Eroica and I. And now we've got the last third that fits perfectly. So it's just, while I don't regret a single moment of the journey here, it feels like this is what we've been aiming toward always. I'm so excited for everybody to hear us, because I just feel like the music has just exploded and just become so much more than it was before. So I'm really excited.
Oh, I'm really excited too, and I know our audiences are going to be really excited. I have to say, that's what I love about these interviews that we do, that we publish, weeks before our artists come into town. It gives us all a chance to get really excited, because if the artists are excited, then, there's a real reason for us, too.
Yeah.
And I know the Eroica Trio has been to Austin many times, but to be able to hear you in your new incarnation, I think is a really, it's a real thrill for everyone. And I have to say, I love the whole Eroica 3.0. I think you should go with it. I know.
I like it,
it's
too.
Very cool.
My husband said that, because he's Mr. Techie, and he always thinks in those. And then I was like, yeah, that's actually true, actually, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, too, because the whole landscape of chamber music has changed tremendously in the last 20... how long has the Eroica Trio been together?
20, almost 25 years.
Yeah, and I feel that the Eroica Trio was the trio that really initiated that big change for chamber music. Now, the level of playing is still as high as it's ever been, but it's sexy, it's friendly, it's, like you say, giggling on stage. There's a sense of bubbliness that happens from the music. There's a sense of excitement. It's not just, and not that there's anything wrong with 4 old, distinguished men playing string quartets on stage. Like, there are profound experiences that way. But truly, the whole image of chamber music has changed. And I feel like the Eroica Trio was the first group who made that happen. And
thank you.
The question is, like, did you know that you were doing something different when you were starting that out?
It's a really interesting question. And I have to say that actually it's funny. We did not set out to change the face of chamber music, which a lot of the press immediately were noticing about us. But we did set out to be completely unique in our own way, because when we were starting out, there was not a single woman at the top of classical chamber music, not one, let alone an all-female group. And we had, shockingly now, in 2013, and interestingly, I was doing a lecture at NYU last year to a class of freshman music students and mentioned some of the stuff that had happened to us. And they were hissing. Like, they couldn't believe that reputable, like, mainstream journalists would have treated us like the Wall Street Journal, would have talked about what our bottoms and upper body looked like in the press for millions of people. They couldn't believe it. And then when I said, this was not 1950, this was 1999.
Yeah.
Just before the millennium, they were talking about us that way. How shocking if they talked about Yo-Yo Ma's lower body anatomy. It would never have happened. But so when we started out, I remember saying to the other 2 girls, I said, look, we can't play the game by the rules, because we've lost before we've even got to the starting line, because we're 3 girls and every door is being slammed in our faces. So we need to focus in on what we do best. And what we do best is that we are in love with this music, and we were in love with playing with each other.
Yeah.
And for us, this is an absolute living and breathing, alive art of today.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is not us imparting on the audience 100 years ago's tradition. To us, this is something that is do or die of the moment. Every second you're laying it on the line. And so we need to focus in on that is what we do. Yeah. That's what we do, and that's what we do best.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but also that's what we think. When you really boil it down, that's what we really felt was the most important thing about performing classical music, was to make sure that it is relevant to today.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and because it is, and it expresses all the greatest of emotions and all the greatest attributes of humanity. And the Kardashians do not.
Right. No.
And so it's our responsibility, after having spent our entire lives honing this craft, to be able to do it justice. It is our responsibility as performers to bring that to the audience and to show them how relevant it is and how inspiring it can be for us to want to be better, to want to excel. You know, that's what just drives me crazy sometimes when I see some of the stuff that's happening in pop culture, because even like 10 years ago, I was very keyed into what was pop culture. I mostly listened to pop music. I was very much on the cutting edge of. I had a lot of friends in the music business, not in classical, in pop music and rock, and in the film business. But what bothers me of what I've really seen in the last 10 years is this fame for fame's sake. You know, that actually excelling at something is really kind of unattractive,
right?
And unsexy,
yeah.
And that really you just want to be famous for nothing,
yeah, yeah.
But being famous supposedly makes you better as a human being, or happier, or something, which is so sad, because if you ever achieve fame, you understand it doesn't change one thing whatsoever. It just amplifies all of what amplifies your problems, and it amplifies whatever good things. But
well,
so I feel it's more important now for what we do.
Yeah,
more important than ever before to show how relevant this is to our day-to-day living.
Yeah,
and how extraordinary it is that a human being just like you and me created this, and it's still speaking to us now.
Yeah. No, that's it's incredible. It's so great to hear you talk about it. And Sara, you're every bit as expressive when you're talking as you are on the cello. it's really amazing, all the expression and how much passion that you put into that. And I know that for me, when I hear the trio play, all of that comes out, and that's what is so exciting about the trio, and what is so exciting for our audiences to hear the trio as well. So, how do you feel that the trio has changed over the years too? Because what you're talking about is kind of your core belief of that, and how have those things grown? If you think about the beginning, and now, of course, you were saying a lot about having the new member in your group, and that's changed things too. But even you personally as a player, how have things changed for you in those 22 years, 25 years, whatever?
I think that number one, we've just gotten so much more adept at really honing in on what is the most important thing of any given moment in the music, so that you pace it better. I think sometimes when we were very young, our performances might have been like really in your face a bit, this is great. No, this is great. No, now this is great. Now this is great. Yeah. And so, now we've learned to have that sense of repose and serenity, and then because, if everything's great, then nothing's great. So you have to have, that. And I think that also we've gotten, and this is something that I always really, really wanted, because I've always been a practical joker, and I've always been somebody who really loves to like tell funny stories and laugh. And I feel like when we first started out, we were a little too serious all the time, and I was always trying to get us to get the humor in the music, and I feel like that's much more now coming out. I mean, it's just much more of a more varied experience on stage now. There, from the programming to which we always were trying to create sort of balanced meals with in the programming to have a little bit of everything. But even now, I think there's more allowed to be more. We really notice when we've ended up with a program like that where we go, wow, after the first performance of it, we're like, that program is a bit too intense all the time. It's like never a moment of repose, and so, or humor, and you know, and so we try to create more balanced moments like that, and within every piece to find that, because you know nobody is monochromatic in their emotionality, you know, and so even in a piece such as like Brahms' C major, which is, you know, A, one of the great masterpieces of the repertoire, B, by someone who really, you know, like I remember the Russians in Tchaikovsky competition, they used to always say the sun never shone when Brahms was writing, you know, because he was so tortured and blah, 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 you know. But I'm like, that's not true. I think that's an incredibly superficial view of his music, and while there is great pathos in his music, and there's often you know that really singular throughout his whole life, really regret of the unrequited love. There is humor, there is playfulness, there are jokes, there is every other part, because no human being is just monochromatic, you know.
Well, and the wonderful thing about Brahms too is that you can have all those things and the darkness at the same time that is sort of underlying that, and it's so exciting as a musician to be able to bring out multiple qualities in that too.
Yes, simultaneously. I know, right? Which is extraordinary. I mean, and which is what makes his music so great. And if his music really was as the Soviets had said, he wouldn't be considered such a great composer.
Right, because it wouldn't be interesting, because it would be one thing.
It would be boring to have this one, you know, thing all the time. So, you know, so we have that, and then like the program that we're playing in Austin on the 21st starts with this fantastic arrangement of, you know, one of the great masterpieces of all time of Western man. Bach wrote this chaconne, which is a movement from the D minor partita for solo violin, and it's a standalone piece, even though it is part of this whole partita.
Because it's huge.
And it's huge. And it's huge in its breadth. It's basically a theme and variations. But it's like by the master of variations, you know, and of counterpoint. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I have always loved this piece so much, and I never progressed enough as a violinist to even think about having a gleam in my eye. It was never even that close.
Are there arrangements for solo cello, or no?
I have been putting one together. I've been trying to, but it is. I'm not sure if it's ever going to work because it's just there's certain things that just you have to be so high on the cello. It doesn't sound. It sounds a little too choked, you know.
And of course, the solo piano version, the Bach Busoni, is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes,
and then Tchaikovsky did a fantastic arrangement of it for orchestra, for the Philadelphia Orchestra, which I did as a teenager at Curtis Institute of Music in Philly. So when we were recording this Baroque album, we wanted to put something. It was already unusual recording a Baroque album with piano, you know, as opposed to harpsichord, and gamba, you know. But though Vivaldi's, some of the stuff was written for cello, shockingly, actually. But so we thought it's so great to have something just like a really meaty, something different. And I was like all about Chacon, Bach Chacon. And they kept thinking about this. I'm like, Bach Chacon, Bach Chacon. And they like talk about something, and I'm like, Chacon, Chacon, Chacon. And so finally, they're like, all right, Sarah, the Chacon, you know? And so then we reached out to this fantastic British female composer, Anne Dudley. Mm-hmm. She is part of the Art of Noise. She has written. Has written classical music. She has written jazz music. She has written movie scores. She wrote the score for the Full Monty, and she also is this like groundbreaking part of this duo, the Art of Noise, which was really very avant-garde, very cutting edge on sampling and stuff. Anyway, and so we called her on the phone. Got her phone number, called her on the phone, and introduced ourselves, and I spoke to her, and I asked her if she would ever be interested in doing this, and she was like, part of me is very interested, and part of me says this is almost like blasphemy. Right. Mm-hmm. So we said, go listen to Bach Busoni, and go listen to the Stokowski, because basically those are the two sort of extremes of what you can do. Go from solo violin to solo piano, or go from solo violin to full orchestra with brass and everything, you know. And tell me if you don't think that A, the music still is shockingly fresh and shockingly powerful, and B, it doesn't actually bring a new insight into the score and the architecture. I mean, that's the thing I think about Bach more than almost any composer. His architecture is so unbelievably mathematically perfect that you can do almost anything to it, and it still is brilliant.
And so expressive, so amazingly expressive.
Yeah. So so she came back, and she was like, she came back to us. She said she'd get back to us in a couple of weeks, and we were really busy playing a lot of concerts. And all of a sudden, she called me out of the blue. And she'd already done it.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, like, yay, and she added I was so excited because I'm right in the middle of doing this Latin cello and orchestra CD that I'm recording. And I was arranging some Piazzolla pieces for cello and orchestra. And I just was like, I just sort of feel like I'd like a little cadenza here. And so I wrote a cadenza to start the Libertango, which turned out really great. And then I ended up writing a sort of new orchestra part to sort of segue, bridge from the cadenza into that.
Totally appropriate, yeah.
Which is totally appropriate. And frankly, in Bach's time, all the composers totally expected you to be ornamenting, improvising, everything.
If it's a theme of variations, if it's a chaconne, are you kidding? Of course, it would be different every time.
Yeah, so she added, and I was thrilled. She got that, and she added a little cadenza for the violin and cello right before the final big statement. And it really builds up to this, and it's fantastic. And what's really fantastic about it is that I have had actual musicians say to me, I just don't remember that variation. So she just did it brilliantly, but you'll hear it. And
you should be like, you don't remember that? How can you not remember that?
I know, exactly. Are you kidding? That's the most famous one. Don't you remember Rachmaninoff did a whole set of variations off of that variation?
Well, how thrilling. I'm excited about that piece because and of course you can imagine, I was shocked when I saw it on the program because I was like, I don't know about this, and like how wonderful to be able to do it. I mean, the chaconne is it's so great, and I love it. I love it in all incarnations, truly.
I do
so
too.
I'm excited to have a new incarnation of it and to have exposure to that. So that's very, very cool. Well, we should probably cut it off, otherwise we won't be able to get this on one recording on YouTube. But so exciting that you guys are coming back, and just talking to you has been so great, Sarah. I love your energy. I love everything that you bring to this art form, and everything that the trio has brought to this art form, and truly, I believe, changed the landscape of it. And I think chamber music is in one of the best places it's ever been in, and I think the Eroica Trio has everything to do with that.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks.
So we'll say goodbye, but I'm going to bring Baby.
Yes, I can't wait.
So let me go. So we'll say goodbye to the audience. Bye,
Bye. We can't wait to see you guys. We love Boston.